Welcome everyone. In this video I will recap the 1996 horror film, The Craft. It begins with Sarah moving to a new home with her father and stepmother. She looks around the house and begins to unpack her things when a man walks in the door. He offers her a snake and tells her to relax. She shouts on her dad and he chases the man away. Later Sarah's dad drives her to school. There, Nancy, Bonnie and Rochelle walk through the halls. Bonnie reads from a book and tells them the almanac will bring an arrival today and wonders if it will be their fourth member. In French class, the teacher asks Mick questions but he doesn't understand and laughs with his friends Chris and Trey. Sarah responds in French which catches Chris's attention. As the boys chat, Sarah begins to magically spin a pencil which Bonnie notices. Sarah sees her stare and it causes the pencil to fall. In science class Sarah asks the other girls to be part of their lab group but they don't answer and she begins to walk away. Bonnie says she can but she sits elsewhere. After class, Chris introduces himself to Sarah. He flirts with her and warns her about the three girls, saying they are witches, then invites her to watch him at football practice. While there, the three girls approach Sarah and introduce themselves. They invite her to hang out and Nancy warns her about Chris telling her he's a jerk. While walking Nancy notices Sarah has a scar on her wrist. She tells them she did it herself and they continue on to a magic shop. Bonnie tries to get Sarah to shoplift but she refuses. When Sarah tries to look in a back room she is stopped by the owner Lirio who chats with her. Sarah claims she doesn't know much about this stuff and Lirio gives her a book on witchcraft telling her she may be a natural witch. When they leave the store, Sarah runs into the man from before, who chases after her shouting he needs to talk to her. She flees across the road and when he follows he's run over by a car. The girls run into the woods and Bonnie says they all made it happen. Sarah is weirded out but Nancy says it wasn't their fault, the man would have hurt her. They tell her about Manon, an entity older than God, like nature. They ask Sarah if things like tonight happen a lot, but she replies that they always go wrong when she does make things happen. Nancy tells Sarah about invoking Manon. She says it takes everything bad away in your life and makes everything better. Sarah says nothing makes everything all better and leaves freaked out. Later Sarah meets Chris and they share a beer and kiss. He invites her to his house but she refuses and heads home. The next day at school the girls tell her that Chris is telling everyone they slept together and she was terrible. She confronts Chris but he says he doesn't want to go out with her again and calls her pathetic. His friends mock her as she leaves. Elsewhere Rochelle is at swimming practice. She is about to dive when another girl Laura shouts to distract her causing her to mess up. While changing, Laura makes a rude comment and when Rochelle asks her why she's doing this Laura says she doesn't like black people and walks off. At the hospital, Bonnie is with her mother getting treatment because she has burn scars all over her body. She tries to get them fixed but screams in pain during the procedure. At night Sarah has a nightmare about when she hurt herself. Nancy walks to her trailer home where her mother and stepfather argue about the power switching off. The next day, the four girls go to the woods and cast a spell. They each prick their fingers into a cup and drink. Rochelle does it for revenge on Laura, Sarah does it for love, Bonnie for beauty and Nancy does it for power. Multiple butterflies appear showing Manon was listening. Later at school, the spell has taken effect. Chris falls in love with Sarah, he promises to tell his friends he lied about her. She makes him carry her and Bonnie's books while his friends stare in shock. At Bonnie's house, the girls cast another spell, they chant light as a feather stiff as a board with their fingers under Rochelle. This causes her to float in the air. The girls stare stunned but when Bonnie's mother enters it breaks the spell causing her to fall. Sarah steals a lock of Laura's hair, she pretends she thought it was a bug and Laura calls her a bitch. She later ties the hair to Rochelle's and Rochelle wonders what will happen. She notices a picture of Sarah's mother. Sarah tells her she died giving birth to her while Bonnie begs Manon to take her scars repeatedly. While at swimming practice, Laura takes off her cap and notices that all of her hair is falling out. Rochelle dives off the board impressing the teacher. Meanwhile, Bonnie is at the hospital. The doctor checks her scars and everyone is shocked to find that they are completely healed. She shows up to class extremely confident as everyone checks her out. At Nancy's home, her stepfather argues with her mother and is about to hurt her when Nancy screams at him. This causes the kitchen to catch fire and him to have a heart attack and be taken away in an ambulance. He dies and a lawyer later tells them he had a life insurance policy and they will receive $175,000, causing Nancy and her mother to celebrate. They use the money to get a new apartment. The other girls go there to visit and Sarah casts a glamour spell to turn her hair blonde, impressing the other girls. Late at night, Sarah is woken up by Chris shouting on her outside her house. He tells her he loves her and can't stop thinking about her, but she tells him to go home and her dad confronts him. The girls head back to the magic shop. Sarah asks Lirio how to undo the love spell, but Lirio tells her it can't be undone. She warns them that what they send out comes back ×3. Nancy finds the book Invocation of the Spirit and wants to buy it. Lirio warns her it is dangerous, but she buys it anyway. They go to the beach and Sarah tells Nancy she used to hallucinate about snakes and bugs, but then they wouldn't go away. Nancy says she should respect the serpent as it's powerful. The four of them stand in a circle and attempt to cast a spell to invoke the spirit of Manon. Lightning flashes around them and Nancy is struck. They wake up in the morning to find Nancy walking on water. She tells the others she can feel Manon inside her body. They hear sirens and on the other side of the beach see multiple sea animals washed up on shore. Nancy thinks it's a gift, but Sarah looks disturbed. Afterwards, they are driving and Sarah starts to question what they are doing and thinks they are taking it too far. Nancy tells her to leave the circle if she's unhappy, but Sarah doesn't want to. Nancy then speeds up, asking if Sarah is scared and drives through a red light, almost crashing. In the showers, Rochelle finds Laura crying, having lost most of her hair, and begins to feel bad. Chris phones Sarah and begs her to accompany him to dinner. She reluctantly agrees. He drives her to a secluded spot and she attempts to vent about her friends, but he just agrees with her about everything because of the spell. He tries to give her a back rub, but she tells him to stop. She gets out of the car and he chases her. Chris tries to SA her, but she kicks him and escapes through the woods to Rochelle's house. There she tells the others what happened. Nancy wants to find him, but Sarah begs her not to. Nancy doesn't listen and proceeds to a party where Chris is. She takes him upstairs to a bedroom and tries to seduce him, but he rejects her. She then uses a glamour to look like Sarah and they start to get intimate. The other girls arrive in a taxi to the party and Sarah finds Chris and Nancy. She tries to get Nancy to leave with her, but Nancy wants to punish him. Chris says Nancy is jealous, which sends her into a rage. She calls him nothing and says he uses women. He apologizes, but she magically throws him out of the window to his end. The next day Sarah mourns Chris's death. She attempts to cast a binding spell on Nancy to stop her from harming people or herself. She then has a nightmare about the others flying in her house and attacking her. In school she hides in the toilets but is confronted by them. They threaten her and Nancy tells her to stop trying to cast spells on her. As they leave, Bonnie asks how she slept. Desperate, Sarah rushes to the magic shop to ask Lirio for help. She takes her into the back room and tells Sarah she has tremendous power, letting her know her mother was a witch. She says Sarah must invoke the spirit to defeat the others. As they begin, there is an explosion, but it's just a glamour. Sarah panics and runs from the store as Lirio shouts for her. She returns to her home and shouts for her dad and stepmother. She receives a call from Nancy, who tells her that her parents were on a flight to San Francisco and to turn on the TV. The news shows that the plane has crashed and no one survived, causing Sarah to break down. The lights go out and when Sarah steps outside she is surrounded by snakes, insects, and rats. She runs inside, but they are everywhere in the house. She hides in the bathroom when Nancy appears and tells her to eliminate herself. Sarah walks down the stairs to find the girls waiting for her. Nancy says Sarah's going to take herself out tonight and taunts her about Chris and her mom's deaths. The girls begin casting a spell on Sarah. She sees a fake note and Nancy cuts her. She runs to her room crying for help and looks at her mother's picture. Sarah casts a glamour spell on Rochelle and Bonnie to make them look badly burned and bald. They both get terrified, causing them to flee the house. Sarah's mother's spirit tells her to reach inside herself and she invokes Manon and her wounds heal. Nancy searches for her with a knife. Nancy searches around Sarah's room but she appears behind her in the mirror. Sarah tells her she has abused Manon's power and will have to pay. Nancy's fingers turn into snakes and bugs appear all over her. They disappear and Nancy apologizes to Sarah saying she will leave, but Sarah stops her and begins to bind her powers. Nancy attacks her and they fly into the wall. She continuously hits Sarah and a drawer crashes into her. Nancy searches for her but only sees her clothes. As she tries to stab them, Sarah reappears and kicks her, causing her to smash into a mirror and she completes the binding. Afterwards, it's revealed Sarah's dad and stepmother are alive. Bonnie and Rochelle come to Sarah. They tell her they lost their powers and apologize, but Sarah rejects them. They whisper she probably lost hers too, but she causes a branch to almost hit them. Elsewhere, Nancy is in an asylum, having gone insane and lost her powers. The nurse injects her while she claims she is flying as the film ends. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.